And get started on the admin things as people trickle in. Welcome to another IWDS 2.0 refresher training. Today focuses strictly on follow-up for youth. So we know a lot of you hold specific youth hats in your local area and or you get to serve both youth and adults, but this session is going to focus primarily on youth follow-up. We will hold a follow-up session for adult and dislocated workers this afternoon. As you've heard, I'm sure before, unless it is your first session, and if so, welcome. But the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity allows for the recording of visuals, participants, and other information sent, verbalized, or utilized during business-related meetings. This meeting is being recorded by DCO. Your participation in this meeting without expressing an objection to the recording will be treated as consent. Any participant who prefers to participate via audio only should disable their video camera so only their audio is captured. In order to make today's session productive and respectful for everyone, please minimize your background sounds when you are not speaking by muting your phone or computer microphone. Use your raised hand reaction to indicate you'd like to speak aloud and wait until you're called on. Also, if you feel comfortable doing so, turn on your video camera. But please post your questions in the Q&A and comments in the chat. To locate your Q&A feature, you'll first go to your Zoom screen. On the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a toolbar. On that toolbar, there is a More icon, which is 3 dots with the word More underneath it. Please select the Q&A option from a pop-up menu that will appear. That will place your Q&A feature on your toolbar for easy access or on your screen as a pop-up. For those of you who are new to these refresher trainings, it's led by the same people as always. So my name is Sarah Blaylock. I'm the Technical Assistance Manager at OET, and I'm joined by Kelly Trimble. Kelly, do you want to introduce yourself today?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelly Trimble. I am the outreach manager with the IWDS 2.0 transition, so work a lot hand in hand with Sarah for us to execute and plan a lot of these trainings.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do without Kelly. I don't say it enough, I don't think. But we're also joined by Laura Dom, who is our policy person at OET, and I think a couple other members as well. All right, so a couple of you have already started introducing yourself in the chat, which is great. But if you haven't, please put your name and your Aaliyah in the chat just so we know who's here. If you want to, you can add like what you're most excited about or what refresher training has been most helpful or what areas are still unclear. We're excited to get that feedback. But as you're introducing yourself in the chat, which is great, we have a lot of 7 on, some people from 20 and 15 and downstate, which is exciting. And Tracy has noted that in-person training was her favorite, which is awesome because I actually was at that one. So I'll just a gold star for that. Anyways, on the screen is today's agenda for the session. Kelly is going to find a customer, review some career plan services, and then review follow-up instructions. Again, this is specifically for youth. So if you don't deal with youth customers at all, please visit our adult and dislocated session this afternoon. And at that, Kelly, I'm going to stop sharing and pass the floor to you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see the system. And what we will walk through today is a lot of the exit summary follow-up activities that you'll be able to execute through the system. And I'll lean on Laura and Sarah for whenever we need to talk about like specific youth policy um, differences or things to note within that. So uh, as a reminder, if you guys were on this morning's call, we covered more on how to, record outcomes in the system and also how to get some of those how to work with the customer as they are going to begin to transition to exit. As a reminder, to fully transition someone to exit from their career plan, we do have to have those services closed out. Unless it is a follow-up service on their career plan, that's one that you can still move forward to transition and exit without that, I think, exit extending activity, I believe we called it. So that one won't hold up to move that forward. Correct me if I missed anything there, Laura, but as a reminder, you'll see now here on this career plan all of my goals and steps, as well as my services, are showing completed, successful completion with some of those dates there.
Hey Kelly, before we get moving any farther, I wanted to also flag that Paula Berry from our OET team is on, and so if you could make her co-host so she can see
Yes.
those Q&As as well. The more the merrier.
Perfect. Okay, yep, Paula, you have co-host now as well. So as a reminder, you can go through, take a look at those different pieces of the career plan. I know today we went through really closing them out all at once. In reality, those are going to be more of a collaborative across, a longer time period of closing those out. But I did try to emulate here a little bit more of kind of in the past, right? So this person doing their apprenticeship program from a youth perspective back to end of last year and completing those services roughly 90 days ago, um, or starting or completing those. So just to kind of give us a little bit better dates there. But once those have been done and you have your outcomes entered as well, whenever you move to that transition tab, as we recall, this person is showing their general transition information, their, days since last service, when their last service ended, and then down at the bottom being your career planning checklist and showing when those outcomes were entered. And in this case, like an education enrollment showing not applicable. And we know because we just checked those goals and steps were closed, so we can check that off. But if you do need to go enter some things in, you can. These little buttons will take you to that portion of the system. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and transition this person. So they're employed, and it's actually going to be pulling their information over from that employment tab. So they're employed at Berkey's Farm Store, that service technician, what that start date was, and then also you can indicate if they're enrolled in education at exit or at transition, sorry. Uh, okay, so now that we have that indicated, if there were any services here that still needed closed, you may have seen earlier there's a box, a yellow box here that shows up that says, they still have open services, so you would need to go close those out, unless there's a follow-up service. So now we're going to focus mostly today on the exit summary one and occurrence and activities section. So whenever we pop into this exit summaries page, I want to note that this force program exit up here is only for training purposes because we couldn't wait 90 days to like finish your training. We did need to have something in the system to get that customer you'd been working on, the day before into an exit status, without having to have a bunch of complex dates and things on your services. So in this case, earlier I did force exit this customer. So now as we scroll down, we're seeing their exit status, what that date was, their employment, any education at exit. And then now we have those different first quarter after exit, second quarter breaking down there. But you'll see that that employment information is pulling over from their outcomes tab. Same thing with an education enrollment, that would flow over as well. Let's see. I'm gonna pause here if there's any questions that we need to address. OET team, can you guys let me know if we need to pause to do some of those?
Sure.
Um,
We've
okay.
got one question from Crystal in the Q&A. When the auto exit feature rolls out, and that will be July 10th. What kind of notice do career planners get? And at what point will they be entering these transition reasons? They're just wanting to make sure that she has a good flow of the timeline. Um, on the career planner dashboard that or their homepage, there will be and I'm sure I think we're going over the dashboard not too long from now, but here you go. So you can see some information. Is this the page or is it the homepage? Yeah. Um, yeah, here you go. So you can go in here and you can see, is this under reports or
Oh, this is under dashboard.
dashboard? Okay, so if you go to the career plan,
Yep.
okay, so you can, if you slide over, you'll see the number of active participants with an open service and so on and so forth. And if you scroll down, I believe, yes, here you go, their customer activity. So you have a guide here as to how many participants you have that are approaching that 60-day, 90-day, 110 days. That should be 100 days. Because you have 90 days and then 100 days and then 10 days for data lag. And then but also I believe that on that homepage that it was there's supposed to be a tile on the homepage that gives career planners kind of a countdown to same as like this iPads where it's a tile and you click on the number and it's going to take you to the list of the customers that are approaching those timeframes so that you can better manage your caseload. Same with career planning supervisors. Career planner supervisors will have a dashboard that includes all of the career planners under their purview. So they'll be able to see this as a whole. So they can also assist in keeping the career planners on track with looking and watching for these upcoming automatic exits. So. And then we've got some more. I'm going to duck and see if I can do you have to open a follow-up service and completing transition? Follow-up is no longer a service in IWDS per se. You will have a follow-up goal, you have a follow-up step, but you're going to track all of your follow-up, and we're going to show you that in the next tab that we're going to show. Do agencies need to enter an exit reason, case note prior to transition? Yes, we talked about that in the previous meeting or the previous webinar where you can put the exit reason. We can go back and show you that. We did the demonstration of entering a new employer in a quarter after exit. I think we kind of did that last time too. Are the quarters auto-populated in the system? Yes, they are. How will we log update employment during follow-up? We can show that on the screen here in a second. And how do you get to the screen for the case notes and active cover customers reports? We might cover that at the end if we have time because this webinar is geared more towards follow-up. So
Yes, yeah, we can definitely.
Yeah, so if you can cover, I guess the main thing is the exit and then where the exit reason is, and then how to add employment here on this exit page.
Yes, I definitely can do that. Okay, so whenever we're on this exit page, if you do need to add additional employment information or any employment changes, you can click this little icon here, which is going to take you to the employment outcomes page. If you need to add anything or make any updates to this person's employment information or employment outcomes, you can add additional, or you can also click the actions eyeball icon here to view more information and make edits to that employment outcome. So let's say something does change and they, maybe they get a new role with new pay. you can update those. Maybe they're working 35 hours a week now. We can save that. Maybe all of the start date and everything remained the same, but whenever now we go back to the exit summary, it'll have some of that additional information there. And based on my update to the wages and the hours, it updated this wages here because earlier I was working 25 hours a week at $30, which was 39,000 estimate. And then now that I made those updates to hours and wage, it updated those wages there. Same thing with maybe, I don't know if this is a great example, but if you needed to add in any instance like an education enrollment, you can click education enrollment, which will take you to the education outcomes tab. Um, I see Monica's question about a force the exit. As a reminder, this is only here for development purposes so that we could have the proper training environment. You will not be able to force exit customers in IWDS 2.0. But we couldn't very well have you wait 90 days to start your training and finish it. So we'd had to put something in place here to help with that.
Thanks, Kelly. I was just going to have you pause and remind everyone of that.
No problem. Okay. Any additional notes, Laura, Paula, Sarah, that you guys would make around this exit summaries page? Or do we want to move into more of the like follow-up activities and occurrences piece?
Uh,
Um,
Thaddeus has a question, but it's very system centric.
Okay,
I can't
let me
answer,
see.
so I
yeah,
don't know if
that Laura,
Lynette's
I was gonna message that question
done
to
that. Okay,
Lydia, actually.
awesome.
So Thaddeus,
Okay.
we'll get you a question or your answer just in one moment. There's also a question in the QA asking to navigate to the case notes screen and active customer reports. I'm gonna leave that in the QA, and then Kelly, after we get done with the next portion, we can circle back to that. As a reminder, we did go over case notes, was it yesterday
Yes.
in a
Yes.
training? So we'll, if we have time at the end, we'll do that, and if not, please refer to that refresher training. But I'm gonna leave that open, so we don't forget about it.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, we'll find out on that frequency of processing the auto exits for the system, for Thaddeus. Okay. That being said, I'm going to move next into our occurrence and activities. So you can either click this tab here, or a reminder, your quick links on the left-hand navigation will always bring you to the same places. So if you click there, or here, it'll take you to this screen. One instance or thing to know here is that at the top, we do have guidance specifically written out for each, for youth and adult dislocated worker. So since we're focusing on youth right now, we'll look at your youth follow-up guidance, and you've got some specifics here. Follow-up services must be made available to all workforce innovation or WIOA youth and for a minimum of 12 months. So there's some guidelines there. I will let Laura shed some light on this if there's any specific things that you want to call out, Laura, from the
Okay.
guided piece.
Okay, on the guided piece, yes, this is just some questions that we put together. This is the policy. I'm sorry, this is the guidance. This is just going to be a little bit of a pull out from the policy as far as what type of activities are allowed for youth during follow-up, supportive services, adult mentoring. And so there's also some questions that you can ask the youth when you contact them to follow up that would fall underneath each of these items that is allowable for youth during follow-up. And so these are a really good guide when you're talking to a youth customer as far as what questions to ask to be able to follow up and see, are they doing well in work? Are they doing well in school? Do they need any additional services? Of course, we can do several services or program services after exit during follow-up for you, specific for youth. So we can help them move into post-secondary education and all those other things. So this is just a good way to try to make sure that we connect with them and get to the root of any issues that they may have and assist them in making positive outcomes. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Okay, I'm gonna collapse that there, but what we can see now is we have the activity down here of those quarters broken out by those dates where we can start adding that follow-up activity. So what we can do here, we'll see for quarter one, maybe we need to record something right now. At the top, you'll see this is the add follow-up activity page. And we have dates of contact attempts. So let's say, I'm going to try to backdate this a little bit, but in February, I gave this Kelly Youth 4 a call, called and left voicemail. So now we have that in there. And you can add multiple attempts here. So maybe the next week, sent them an email. Can add that information there from a tracking purpose. But let's say we were successful on that email piece and we actually set up, successful two-way contact. And they came in on the 19th. We had an in-person meeting and completed that. In this case, get those dates in there, and then we can provide, the things that we did during that meeting, right? So activities provided. We talked through some labor market information. We talked about success stories, anything like that. And in this case, my person was certified for both youth and adult. So there are some options there. But we can put some activity notes, and then also down here, we have the follow-up status. So in this case, we're going to have that ongoing follow-up status, but there are some options there if we need to provide any more information. And we can indicate, is the customer still employed? Are there any new credentials on track? Yes or no? And then save. And if you forget anything, oh, okay, then we need at least one of these. So you see that it wasn't saving, and then I have a little error here that's telling me what I need. So we'll hit save. And now that follow-up activity was successfully created. So now we have, in this case here, it's completed on the 19th. So within that window, has our activities, follow-up status is ongoing. That contact was complete, but we had 2 attempts. So if you need to view that, you can click the eyeball icon and take a look at that, and also be able to edit it if need be. Okay, so same thing if we were trying to, now we're in a quarter 2 instance here. Maybe we tried last week to get a hold of them on the phone to get them in. And then maybe we had a check-in with them yesterday. Maybe this one was on the phone. We're going to call this complete. Or maybe you got it scheduled and you want to put pending in there. You could also do that. But then we did this yesterday over the phone. Talked through a couple different things here. Any activity notes? That follow-up status. And then again, notating some of these instances if anything has changed from quarter to quarter from a employment, education, or credential basis. And you'll see that updates in the table.
And again, on the bottom of the screen, if they learn when they do a contact that they, or when you were in there, if they learn of during contact, they were in school or that they were employed, you can add it right there at the bottom.
Yes. Great point. Yep. So let's say you do want to add that they did start taking some classes or they got enrolled in some education. You can click this button, which will take you directly to where you need to go to get that entered in. And then from there, you could go back to follow up as well. Okay, so I know we have some questions we're going to go back to, or we're getting some additional clarification on, but any other questions we can answer, especially from a youth perspective, when it comes to exit and follow-up activity? And if not, that's okay.
Exactly. We're always going to have our hypercare. So if anything comes up, we'll always be around.
Okay, another question came through around, so if they're saying they're still working, do we add the documentation under uploads? Or is there a way to link it through the outcomes tab?
Good question. We talked about this before. You make sure to put that in the outcomes tab and it will flow over here. You always want to put
Mhm.
that information where it truly belongs. So the measurable skills gain, the credential, you always go there. And here you have the quick links that Kelly was just hovering over. So those quick links will take you right to the right page to put them in there. And then everything will then go to uploads. Everything in the system labeled case notes will then go to the case note page. We've tried to make this as easy as possible, simple as possible, so you don't have to bounce around a whole lot. And if you do hit those buttons to add like employment outcome, notice that it does open in a separate window. And so when you get done adding that, you're going to be right back where you were before. So
I'll walk through that example I just did as well. But in that case, let's say, we're having our follow-up and when we're in that follow-up activity, if you're needing that, if you want to add some more documentation around that employment at Berkey's Farm Store, you can click on this little button here to go straight to the employment outcomes. And in that case, they're still working at Berkey's Farm Store. So I'm going to click the eyeball here, which brings up the details. And then I can edit this and add a file down here around that specific employment outcome. And then the design there, let me exit out of this. That should flow over. There we go. So see, adding it in the place it's supposed to go will also filter it to this uploads tab. So it's in the employment outcome as type pay stub, uploaded on the 24th. We'd have that all here, but if you put that in this document, it's not going to be tied directly to that outcome. So that's why best practice is going to be adding it within the outcome tab itself, but it will flow to this area.
all right, Thaddeus has a fantastic question, and we did not cover that, so we need to. His question is, what are the steps that need to take place if a youth declines follow-up services? So if you would go into, say, quarter 3, and I know that this confuses some people, but when you say this, the status of the contact is this current iteration of your contact with the customer. Further down, it will say uh, follow-up status. So this follow-up status is ongoing. They're engaging with you. So it's ongoing. If they decide to opt out or you're unable to locate, you would choose that here. So if they opt out, you would click that. And then you would be able to save it, and then it would track it that way. Now, there's some specific things as far as the policy goes that you have to have a certain number of, oh, it thinks you're an adult. Okay. Okay. um, so, there's certain things per policy, like you have to have so many attempts, what for unable to locate, what for opt out. If they opt out originally, you can just select opt out and make sure that you put that in there. Sounds like looks like there's an issue in the system, so I'm sure that you're going to log.
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Yeah. But anyway, you always add notes. Always add notes. Remember, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So.
Okay. I think it's because our person here is certified for both adult and youth. So I'll take a look at that with the development team, however.
Kelly, do we want, if we're, approaching the end of this part of the demonstration, do we want to navigate back to the case note active
Yes.
customer screen since it looks like we have some time?
Yeah, so the person that put that in, you said, how did you get to the screen for the case notes and active customer reports? I think that question came up when we were in the dashboard. So, and feel free to add in there if this is what you were talking about. But under here, under your dashboard, and we are going to have a more in-depth webinar on this tomorrow, where we talk specifically about the dashboard and how it works, along with, additional information, and system, development there. So this is broken up into intake, career plan, outcomes, and follow-up. So lets you know where a lot of these actions need to take place. But whenever we were on this specific page, it was showing your, customer engagement, but then also down here, customer activity, which was no case note 20 to 29 days, no case note in 30 days, last active service, participants with open services, and breaks those down.
Thanks, Kelly.
No problem. The only other thing, I mean, related to case notes, I would go back to is, we'll use this example. If you're wanting to look specifically at case notes, those are also located under the participant summary tools under case notes, which, in this case, looks like I have some like examples here of like customer contact in this specific example for case notes, but that piece showing you how that works or to need to come in here and add a case note. But otherwise, if it was around the dashboard and that information we saw earlier, that's under dashboard career plan and lets you know which customers have not had case notes within that many days that would be assigned to you, or if someone has additional permissions to see like customers for an entire office or an entire LWIA, it would show like larger numbers here based on those roles and permissions.
Kelly, when you're done with that, could you go back to our youth customer?
Yes.
And go to our follow-up, our occurrences and activities. Yeah. And you had selected opt out, right?
Yes.
Did you save that opt out?
It wouldn't let me save it, but
Oh, that's right. It wouldn't let you save it.
I also was in like not the correct quarter, so I don't know if maybe that was the case as well. But
We had a question, so I'd like to explain why we've got this visual up.
okay.
Um, when opt out works properly, if you could go back to the last screen. When opt out works properly, this follow-up status column will say opt out, and all of the quarters below it will go gray. you are not required to continue your quarterly contact if the youth customer is opted out. So that was the one question they wanted to know if they would have to continue to make that quarterly contact, and the answer is no. And on that quarter screen that it shows you, once that status changes to opt out, it will gray everything out, blacken it all out so that you know that it's not required.
Mhm. It says it's only, I'm gonna see if I can, seeing if like deactivating adult will help us here. Okay, we'll definitely look into that, but it should black those out or block those out so that they're not, you know, required any longer.
Again, just
Kathy?
like case notes, there will be a updated follow-up policy that will be coming out shortly for public, or not public comment, but for comment from to the Illinois Workforce Association and to OET. And so we'll make sure to get those policies out as soon as we possibly can, so that you will have guidance. But for right now, the majority of the a lot of the guidance is in those chevron where you can drop down those chevrons on the top where you can it shows you guidance.
Laura, it looks like we have another question in the
Yeah,
QA.
Crystal, the post-exit quarters, well, for you reporting won't be grayed out. Just logging the follow-up activity. You would show those post-exit quarters. You would go to the exit summary page or tab.
Okay.
So yeah, if you go back up to the exit summary tab, so say they've, yeah, say they've and you know of supplemental wages or whatever, you can click on that right there, any one of those tabs, and you can change that. And then same for education. If you learn that a youth is now enrolled in post-secondary education, you can make sure that you add that. Here's a good place to do it. You also can add, great, Crystal, you can also can add it at the bottom of a particular follow-up, quarterly follow-up activity. These links, quick links are also located there. So there's several places where you can go to put it in and then get back to where you were working. So.
Great questions, everyone. And Thaddeus, Olivia is texting me currently on your question, and that's still open in the QA. Do we have any more specifically about, transition? Oh, I'm sorry, follow up with youth? I was back in earlier land. Kelly, Laura, is there anything you feel like we need to go back over for this session?
The only thing I would probably bring up is we have, based on feedback, had some requests for additional time on, let's see, hold on here, like resource room and frontline staff, which we added another section for on Friday from 12 to 1. This used to be like the ITA specific session, but we've repurposed it to be for training for resource room and frontline staff. So if you were already registered for that one, you probably got a link that it updated. I know some people let me know that they saw that. Um, that came through last night as I was burning the midnight oil, as they say. So we will have some more information around that was requested. So, um, from case notes yesterday, I did fall behind on uploading those. So there's a spot here. I will have those up as soon as I can, but it goes through those case notes and uploads.
And then I do have an answer that I will type for this, for Thaddeus's question that says, the system will run the job every night to determine who had gone 90 plus days with no active service. If career planners put in a date after the fact, the system can also determine from that back date if they need closed. So I'll type that now, but I just wanted to make sure that was answered before anybody hops off.
Put
And
the
just as
train.
a note with that also, we are not turning on that auto exit feature until later in July. So we mentioned that a couple of times, but I want to make sure since we're talking about that now, everyone knows that we will turn on the auto exit feature. We want to make sure that, we're all settled in to our 2.0 environment before that functionality gets turned on. Oh, and then for the question in the QA, the automatic exit question, I'll just note what we just noted. The system will not turn on that functionality July 1. So right now the target is July 10th, but we want to make sure everybody is again settled in and everything came over correctly before that functionality is turned on. All right. Well, if there's no further questions, I'm going to formally respond to Thaddeus's questions in the QA. Oh, there's another question. Will the system be updated to require case note entries for service/activities entered into the system? I don't know, Laura, if you know that yet, or if you know that, or Kelly knows that. If not, we can add that to our FAQ.
Case note, there's a lot of places where case notes are required, such as the getting started assessment and the like training and education assessment. For a lot of other things, it's not a required field, but for ease of telling the story of your customer to anyone you need to, internal auditors, state monitors, federal monitors, you want to make sure that you are putting in as descriptive case notes as possible. And you can go back and review our case note training that we did yesterday. We went through it quite a bit. Also, the case note policy is now out for comment. So hopefully we'll get that soon, but you definitely want, even though it may not be a required field, you may feel like you probably ought to put something in there. And I also want to say that local areas were going to have their own procedures and practices and their own policies on what needs to be done. So you want to make sure that you're following that as well.
And Laura, I don't know if you have insight into Cassie's question in the QA that says, now that we're in 2.0, when entering MSGs and credentials, this should eliminate lag time for performance measures, right?
I'm going to turn that over to Paula since she's our
Okay.
performance person on the call.
Paula, any thoughts?
Lag time for performance measures, Cassie. Okay, so the MSGs and credentials, the lag time doesn't really apply. So could you please clarify that or?
Sorry about that. I'll come off mute.
Yeah, thanks.
I meant to put employment. And because we're working in two systems, right? The Career Connect
Mhm.
and Career Connect communicates with IWDS, and sometimes it's a lag time for agencies to see their work.
Mm.
So that's what I meant by that.
Okay, I see. So the nature of reporting and quarterly reporting when we get the wage upload, there will still be a lag from our IDES match
Got
with
it.
the wage. But when you go into the screens they show you and manually enter an employment record
Hmm.
that you become aware of before we get the match
Okay.
and put a wage and can verify it, that will bring your employment outcomes more current.
But
Even
it will be a lag time, just a slight
it,
lag time, right?
yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
every quarter. And we'll do
Just
more performance training later after it goes live.
all right. Thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cassie. Great question. All right, we're about 12 minutes to the hour. I think that we've covered everything on our agenda. As a reminder, we'll be holding the adult dislocated worker follow-up session later this afternoon in a similar format. So if you also deal with customers who are adults or dislocated workers and you have questions, you can come to that as well. And then as always, Kelly put it in our chat that our training hub page is going to be your centralized location for all previous recordings and things like that. So refer to that if you have upcoming questions on previous sessions. But I think Kelly, Laura, Paula, if there's nothing else, we can ask people to go enjoy 11 extra minutes of their day, and we'll potentially see them later.
Sarah, there's a question for you in the chat.
Okay.
Or not the chat, I'm sorry, the Q&A.
Oh, okay. Huh. During a meeting on Zoom, there was an Excel sheet to monitor services during blackout. I cannot find it. Does anyone have that link? I'm not
That wasn't something
positive.
we made, right?
I'm not positive I'm aware of. Scarlett, are you from the LBS 7 region?
No, I am. Some told me to stay on.
Okay. I know you are, Kathy,
Yeah, I'm
and we're
still on
thankful for
too.
it.
This is Tina. I'm still on. We're going to be discussing
Yes.
that in about on a meeting coming up. So
Okay, perfect. I didn't know if that's
Thank
something
you.
that you all
Thanks,
had
Tina.
created internally.
yeah, I just
Uh,
finished working on that. So yeah, we're getting ready for a meeting in about an hour, I think.
oh, okay. Okay. So I think, Scarlett, that might be an LBS 7
hmm
specific note. Um, I can speak for the OET TA team. I have not created an Excel sheet. However,
No.
we have a blackout session planned for tomorrow that will go over some resources for everyone. There are some resources for career planning and case notes and things like that. But I have not seen an Excel sheet. So I'll do some digging and then Cassie and Tina and who all else is, from 7, just keep me in the loop.
Now, Crystal put something in the chat, and I know that you worked on one of these pieces, but she said she asked the same thing. There was a PDF that they were supposed to get for recording services and case notes during blackout. I know you did one for case notes.
Yeah, we have a case note and then we also have a career plan resource. We'll
Okay.
share all that and it'll be on our IWDS training hub page, but we have not shared it broadly yet. As I'm sure you all know, you're getting tons of emails and we want to make sure they don't get lost in the shuffle. So whatever we have, we'll get to you and then we'll definitely review it tomorrow on our call. Perfect. Well, Kelly, Laura, Paula, thanks so much for being on and so active in today's call. And Laura, do we have one in 8 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, fun. Fun.
Thank you
Laura, I
all.
did run that slides 14 through 35 through Gamma, and they're in the finalized version now.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. All right, all.